Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 96th episode of Edoverse Weekly Insider. Happy New Year to you all. And we are going to start this episode with the latest installment of Edo knowledge from Tokugawa-san. So please take it away, Tokugawa-san.
Okay, thank you, Martin. Hello, everybody. This is Eihiro Tokugawa. Happy New Year, and I pray that this year will also be great for all of you. Now, in this session, I would like to ponder on how the people of Tokugawa, Japan, were thinking about the world outside. And this is something not very few people have given deep thought about this, as you see, so mostly because Japan was closed or insulated during Tokugawa Japan, it is as if people didn't think about the outside world, but which is quite to the contrary. So naturally, the top elite, just like the top elite in North Korea today, knew very well about outside developments. And there seemed to have been some secret channels with China. You see, diplomatic channels with the Korean Lee dynasty, Lee dynasty or Lee dynasty, is well recorded. And when each shogun passes away or retires and a new shogun ascends to his seat, then the Koreans send an embassy. So like 13 embassies in total? No, less than that. From around 1800, they would just meet with shogun's officials in Busan. Now, but you see, just like today, just dealing with the Koreans would be a very sad form of diplomacy. Well, the country that really mattered until about 1800 was China, always. And in some old textbooks, they criticized Tokugawa Japan as having foreign relations with only China, Korea, and the Netherlands. But I mean, that sufficed. I mean, who would want more, is my honest impression. Now, and then with China, you see, there seems to have been some official agreement. So at least there is the agreement to do commerce, goshi. Mutual market is how you would translate it. And there was a very lively trade between China and Japan centered in Nagasaki. So Nagasaki is usually, it is better known to ordinary Japanese as the city of Dejima, where the Dutch merchants were forced to stay, like 200 people in a very tiny island, a man-made island. But the reality is that there's a much bigger Chinese presence there. And so, but no formal relations, as formal diplomatic relations with the Chinese Empire would mean that Japan will have to, Japan will have to treat the Chinese emperor as the overlord, and that the Japanese could not do. But trade was important. But for trade to happen, you would have to have some kind of diplomatic relationship. How that had been taking place between Qing China and Tokugawa Japan is still a matter of mystery. So, because it may have been taking place in places like Sakata in present-day Yamagata Prefecture, and maybe Nagasaki, maybe in Matsue in Shimane Prefecture. So anywhere along the coast of the Sea of Japan. And then the educated Japanese read Chinese quite well, probably much better than Japanese reading English today. So they knew a lot. And then there's plenty of, and China officially had this policy of insulation as well, but it is it has a long borderline with its neighbors, including Russia, a European power, Islamic powers, and then Southeast Asia. Many of for instance, the Kingdom of Siam, present-day Thailand, was a major trading nation. So information from all over the world was flowing into China. China was the trading power, as it had silk, it had porcelain, it had all kinds of trinkets that the world salivated for. So, so the Japanese elite were pretty well informed about what was happening inside. And what's interesting, the Qing Empire or the Manchu Empire has its very respectable place in the list of Chinese empires for its destruction of the Mongols, practically wholesale. Before the Manchus, the Mongols were a major power, an empire in its own right in Central Asia. After the Manchus, it is what it is today, landlocked, tiny republic with more sheep than people. So in between was this, apocalyptic war. And so the Manchus basically bankrupted themselves, but destroyed completely the nomadic empire as their inland neighbor for the first time in Chinese history. And interestingly, the Tokugawa officials probably knew about this war, but never let ordinary Japanese know about this. Why would that be the case? Because that would have been the opportune moment to attack China from the coasts. See, China would have to contend with two very powerful enemies on two fronts. One in the what today Xinjiang, and the other on the coastal lines. So the Tokugawa refrained from that. And they probably knew. So there must have been some kind of communication route, which is kept secret to this date. Okay, so on this matter, I would like to close this session with hereby. And so to the next speaker, please, Martin-san.
Thank you very much, Tokugawa-san. And the next speaker is actually going to be me.
Oh.
So may I ask if that line of thinking about how Japan perceived the outside world is then going to lead on to something about how Japan perceived itself in relation to the other countries that it had trading relations with?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Could you be more specific about that? About your question?
Well, I think, it's the self-identity of the Japanese people. I mean, in many nations, there isn't, a solid national identity that is formed until placed in the context of there being other surrounding nations. And obviously,
right. Yes.
Knowing that China and Korea are distinct cultures across the ocean is one kind of frame for that. But when does a sort of Japanese national identity begin to form?
Yes. So I think this is a problem that continues to this date, to our present. So you see, the Tokugawa elite understood very well that China is, it's a superpower in a way, but much more vulnerable than Japan, that it's surrounded by very hostile forces. By contrast, Japan is much smaller, but its cost of governance, so to speak, is much lower. So if Japan and China go to war, Japan could be pretty strong up to a point, but it could never win. That was the experience of the ancient pre-imperial Japan, so in the 7th century, and that's the experience of the Toyotomi. But in the eyes of ordinary Japanese, China looked like, you see, a bunch of weaklings and cowards because they're not willing to fight so much against the fiercely combative Japanese. So, and that is, so this, Japan had this dual notion of identity, or binary notion, how would you say? So the elite perception and the popular perception.
Right.
And that probably continues to date. The average Japanese has become really anti-Chinese. And then, but the elite naturally understand that China as well, the emerging superpower, and also Japan's largest trading partner is very, very important, and that we do need improved relations.
Right.
And all of this started with the Toyotomi. So we call it Tokugawa Japan, but it is in fact post-Toyotomi Japan. Many people think China as the arch enemy and as a weak, big but weak nation. But the elite understand China as a great civilization, okay, to be treated with respect and never to be underestimated. So, and then, so that dual perception of China is reflected in how the Japanese see ourselves.
Right.
So the elite perception is that we are just one among many. And then a large part of popular perception, even today, is like Japan is sui generis and like probably the most important nation in the world. Yeah, that perception reached its peak during the imperial times, but But that's how we started. Shotoku Taishi pretended that we are equal to China back in the 7th century. Complete insanity, but he did it anyway. And following generations would always try to copy that example. So yes, we have a dual identity vis-a-vis the outside world, is how I would put it.
Right, fascinating. I think China also has a similar binary in high versus low perception of Japan, where the elites are very fond of Japan and look at it admiringly as being the first Asian nation to achieve modern
westernization,
westernization, whereas the working classes are constantly bombarded with anti-Japanese propaganda, with dozens of movies coming out every year where thousands of Japanese are killed by heroic Chinese, and there's a lot of propaganda, like anti-Japanese propaganda, but definitely the upper middle classes and the ruling elites have a similarly favorable view of Japan as the Japanese elites do to China. So yes, it's a funny situation indeed.
Yes, well, as far as this patriotic propaganda in China is concerned, this I think comes from an important lesson learned when China was much more pro-Japan, like under Hu Jintao or Hu Xiaoban, is that the Chinese loved things Japanese so much, the Chinese ruling elite got scared. They got cold feet.
Right.
So that is probably the origin, and the Chinese masses don't care much about the outside world. I mean, China is a world unto its own.
Yes.
Yeah. So, right, more so than in the the red states of the United States. For the Chinese, the Japanese devils they see in propaganda movies are just that, devils.
Yeah.
And they probably don't even the World War II is a long time ago, and they probably don't recognize the Japanese militarists as some real world entity by now.
Right, it's just a fantasy.
Yeah, so it's more a myth than a matter of national identity, is how I would see that.
Right. Well, that's reassuring.
Yes. Yeah. So there's plenty of room for improvement in relations.
Right.
I hope. Yes.
Yeah. Me too. Yes. Well, thank you, That's sorry for your difficult. So,
yes.
On to my bit here, and speaking of nations that have more sheep than people, in Australia, a crypto company named Hyperverse has collapsed, leaving $1.3 billion of losses in the hands of its customers. And it just came out a couple of days ago that the CEO of that company appears actually to not exist. And his entire resume has been totally faked. He doesn't have a degree from the university he claimed to have a degree from. He never did the deals that he claimed to have done, and so on and so forth. So it's very tiresome to have these scammers, taking advantage of all the amazing opportunities that crypto offers to consumers. And it really makes things so much more difficult for honest actors in the market, such as ourselves, to gain traction and to actually put in place the plans we have that are going to genuinely benefit people. So yes, that's very disappointing. And the fact that it's called Hyperverse, right? So it has the verse in it, and they did talk about the Metaverse. So it's very tiresome. And hopefully the authorities will clamp down on it and see if they can retrieve some of that money and get it back into the hands of consumers. But just going through the media recently, my favorite online source of news for this genre is TechCrunch. And there's a very interesting article there, Crypto Optimism in the Age of the Doomer, written by Rebecca Rittig, who is a lawyer specializing in crypto. And she's very bullish about 2024 for crypto, and looking back on the previous year, thinks that it was actually a pretty good year for crypto. Obviously, the winter began in the closing months of 2022, and I think the early months of 2023 were probably also similarly poor for the industry. But I think looking through that article and a couple of others on TechCrunch, it does seem that yes, people are very positive and optimistic about the future of crypto this year. So fingers crossed, that is going to put some positive wind in our sails going forward, and the market at large is going to grow significantly this year. The other interesting piece of news was that hacking has also reduced significantly in 2023, and although there were quite a few thefts of crypto, as has been the case every year since its inception, and there was a marked decline in the number of hacks and stolen crypto in 2023. So I think that probably indicates that security protocols of crypto firms are improving. They're becoming more resilient to this kind of nefarious hacking activity. And we can hope that that trend continues and there are fewer hacks. Obviously, the reason that we are delaying the launch of Edoverse is to bolster our security and make sure that that cannot happen to us. So yes, everyone should be very reassured that that is going to happen, and we're going to be a very, very secure platform when we do launch at the end of this month. So that's it from me for this week's episode. Kurata-san, Dominic, would you like to step in and give us your talk for this week, please?
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Martin. And Happy New Year to you, everybody. Yes, Edoverse will launch at the end of January. Just know we are actually really planning on it. So as Martin just mentioned, that actually we are now finalizing and just the security just for the ecosystem. So our tech team is seeking for what we call the penetration test. The penetration test is actually we're just testing from the actually outside just into the Edoverse ecosystem, whether it's really safe or not. So I hope that it's gonna finish very soon, and then the Edoverse launch will be very, very safely. Actually, everybody can just enjoy the games. So, and then as you just might see the teasers from the SNS. We just wrote the teaser of the sumo card game. I think the card game is going to be, yeah, it's also, I think, I just found that it's very, very interesting and very fun. You can just enjoy the sumo card, just yeah, at the merchant things that, and then you can just get the higher points that you can just get a point. So the points just in the Edoverse it's going to be very important for in the future, because I hope it's going to be just connected with the Zennies, and then so Zenny it's going to be actually sort of ordinary currencies, ordinary token in the ecosystem of the Edoverse. So the first stage that we have some of the guidelines of a game just to just earn the points. But at the points, we still need some definition, just on how you can just earn and how much you can just earn that, and then in the future that how much you can convert into zennies. But still, just we are actually just finding all the sort of regulation that how we can just fit in the system. And it takes a little more time. Please just wait for us. What we are doing that just between the points and zenny. But we already just launched the Ninja Challenge and also Sumo card game, and then Yabu Summit host racing games. It's going to be launched at the end of January, and it's going to be very exciting. But we have to just wait for the penetration to result to the penetration test, and then what we see that if we have some vulnerability that we might just need more time, but probably, yeah, it's going to be okay, because mostly holders of the 3D spaces are ready, and also the games are ready, and also the tokenomics are ready, and then it's already connected. So what we need is actually just all the final check on a test that we just make it not. So hope just we can make it, and also we're gonna hold a monthly insider the 11th of January at 1:30 p.m. Please just join the monthly insider that we can just share all the information what's and then we can just inform you about the whole sort of the current updates of the Edoverse. So please just wait for another month. Within the month that Edoverse will launch. So please wait for a little while and then enjoy Edoverse. Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for watching this week's episode. We will see you either at the Monthly Insider on the 11th or in the next episode of the Weekly Insider. And I guess it will be the last Monthly Insider before the official launch. So yes, definitely tune into that. Going to be some last minute updates. And we look forward to seeing you again in the very near future. Goodbye.